This meeting called to order. Ask everyone to please rise and join in with me as we salute the flag of our country.
Pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Have roll call, please, Jim.
Andy Kleehammer, the chairperson, is excused tonight. Richard Dickinson,
Here.
Bushian. Here. Kachowski.
Here.
Thornton is absent. Offerman.
Here.
Dunn is absent. Mayor Calvadas.
Here.
Councilman Nicopatis is absent. Tony Beatrice is absent. William Obert.
Here.
Dave Rowan, solicitor.
Here.
And Brian Hall, engineer.
Here.
Thank you. Public notice of this meeting pursuant to the Open Public Meetings Act as posted on the bulletin board of the Borough Clerk's office and mailed to the retrospect and Carrier Post newspapers appointed for that purpose. Has everyone had a chance to read the minutes of the November meeting? Are there any additions or corrections? Motion's in order for the approval. Motion made by Joe Aubrey, seconded by Debbie Gushan. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All right, the minutes are approved as submitted. We have one application to come before us this evening. It's an application for a side yard and rear yard both variances for Mr. Nicholas Tutil. Did I say your name right?
Yes.
Okay.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the board, Mayor. My name is Michael Albano. I'm the attorney, Runnemede, New Jersey. I'm here on behalf of Nick Tutil and his wife Lois. We're here tonight to ask for a side yard variance and a rear yard variance for a existing garage on his property. If I can give you a little bit of history. First, we did give notice to all the property owners within 200 feet, as well as notified in the newspaper more than 10 days before the meeting. I submitted an affidavit to June Elkins for that. Second, my client went to Mr. Warburton several years ago, about 12 or 13 years ago, and asked to put this garage up. Mr. Warburton told him he could do it without a permit because he considered it a pole barn. Well, it's actually a garage. Mr. Tutil did do that. He relied on the representations. Then he realized that he may need variances. He came to me, and he's concerned that if they sell the property in the future, him and his wife may run into problems because they haven't got a variance for the garage. But the garage is existing. It's been existing for at least the last 12 years. Meets all other requirements. This is the R1 zone in Sherrington. The R1 zone allows accessory buildings 5 feet off the property line, rear and side, or 4 feet, 4.21 feet off the side yard. So we're almost compliant on the side yard. In the rear, where his property, his garage is 0.29, so 1 car garage, almost sits on the property line in the rear. Behind the building, or behind the property is Triton High School. It's actually the baseball field, and it's the outfield. And the interesting part about this is John Wade did call me about the application. John's the Blackbird Pike Regional School District attorney, because they got notice, and I explained it to him. And I also explained to him that the outfield of Triton has a fence, or has a net on one side of my client's property and a net on the other side of my client's property, but not in front of my client's property. And I told him he gets a lot of baseballs in his yard. If he can finish the net, complete the net, put that in the budget, maybe keep the baseballs out of the yard. But in any event, John didn't have any objection to it. He just wanted to know what was going on. I would have Mr. Tutil testify very briefly about it, if the support so inclined, or accept the representation.
Mr. Tutel, would you raise your right hand? You solemnly swear to affirm the testimony you're about to give this board tonight is truthful and accurate to the best of your knowledge.
State your full name and address for the record.
This is John Tudor, 584 Sherrington Lane, Runnemede, New Jersey,
How long have you been there?
34 years since I was there.
And your wife also lives there?
Yes.
So she consent to this application
She
tonight?
consents, she has
She's
no
not,
problem with it.
she's not here.
No.
Now, I made a representation that you approached Mr. Warburton about 12, 13 years ago. Is that accurate?
It's about 11, 12.
11 or 12, it's 12, 13.
Yeah.
And what did he tell you to do with this?
He said because it was a pole barn, didn't really need anything, it wasn't a permanent structure, didn't have a foundation. And I said, okay, then I went ahead and built it.
And you relied on that up to today?
Up till recently, yes.
Okay, and now you're before this board asking for variances, bulk variances, which are, we're asking for C2 variance or hardship variance. Do you understand what that means?
Yes, it is.
And why are you doing that?
In case I do sell the house, and eventually it's going to be sold, I want to make sure I'm in compliance with all the regulations, and I don't have any problem when I try to sell the house.
And do you understand that, or can you tell me what type of garage this is?
It's a pole barn, it's 20 by 20. I work on the old cars, I usually have an old car I'm working on, I have friends in their cars. It's just like two hobbies and stuff.
Is it a one-car garage?
It's a one-car garage,
And how tall is it?
it's under 12 feet.
Does it meet all the other requirements that you know of
That I'm aware of, yes.
for accessory use?
Yes.
Okay. Behind your house, is Triton High School directly behind your
Triton
house?
High School is right behind my house.
Okay, is there any sheds or any obstructions on Triton High School that would impede this garage?
No, none whatsoever.
How about the neighbors, or anything that would impede your neighbors that you know of, to the right or left?
Not that I'm aware of.
Now, it does have, it's, part of the garage is in the ground, correct?
Yes,
How far into the ground is it?
probably a foot and a half.
Okay, and would it be a hardship for you to move this somewhere else in the yard?
It would be almost impossible, I would think. Also, if I had to move it, I'd have to move it towards the house, because my neighbor's fence isn't perpendicular, it comes in on the nag. I couldn't move it straight up, I would have to move it more towards the center of the yard, and further up towards the house. I think I would be too close to the house at that point.
Okay, you also have a wood deck on the back of the house, according to
Yes.
survey, and if you move the shed up and to the, say, to the left,
It would hit the deck.
okay.
It would hit the deck.
That's all I have testimony, Mr. Chairman, from Mr.
Thank you. Anyone from the board have a question for Mr. Tuto? Mr. Tuto, I thank you for allowing me on your property when I visited the site. It appears to me, and I don't know, have you moved this frame shed to the in close proximity to the frame building with vinyl siding referenced on your property?
Smaller building,
Yeah.
can it be moved?
Have you moved it?
I moved it one time, yeah, it used to be tucked in the corner.
Does that have a peak roof on
Yes.
it? And I thought it was right up against this building.
Oh, no, it doesn't touch.
I didn't go all the way on your property, remember, I was
No, it doesn't touch it.
walking with a cane and the weather wasn't
Yeah, I
that
know.
favorable that
Yes,
day.
yes, yes.
Anyone else visited the site? Have any questions?
I know the property. I've seen it from the other side of the baseball field side. I don't see any issues with it, to be honest with you.
Didn't see any issue. He said he didn't see any issue, he saw it from the other side.
Okay. Mr. Herbert, have anything to add to that?
No.
No? Did you, in your testimony, did you say you were willing to move it?
Well, garage, I can't do garage, no.
Can't move it?
No.
It's got big footings, how far they in the ground?
It's got the 4x6s go into the ground 4 inches. And it's quite good.
I mean, I'm thinking that, you know,
See anything?
no, Brian, the engineer did not do a review because it's a single application.
No, I do have a couple comments. I just want to clarify that he is asking for a variance for side yard setback where 5 foot is required, 4.21 feet is existing. The rear yard setback for this garage is, the closest setback is about 3 inches from the property line, where 5 feet is required. So he'd be asking for variances for front, for side yard and rear yard setback to the garage. And also, the garage itself is 20 by 20, when 16 by 24 is permitted. So, he would be asking for a variance of that also, in this, for size.
Well, you know how rumors fly, Mr. Tuccio, and there's all kind of rumors flying around that You are running a business out of there, you have a lift in there, and you,
I have a left because
Change
I have
your-
arthritis in my spine and my neck, and I just can't work on the ground anymore. I own 5 cars, my son owns 4 cars. There's friends that come over and do stuff.
Are they any type of car, like are they classic cars or new cars?
Most of them are classic cars.
are you a hobbyist?
Yes.
Okay.
That's my son's Chicago.
Are you running a business out
No,
of
no,
there?
not running the business, yeah.
Do you do other stuff in the garage besides automobile, like do any woodworking?
I built cabinets in there for my son. I'm always working on projects, model airplanes, stuff like that.
Are you presently employed?
No, I'm retired, I've been retired for 9 years.
And
Good for you.
Okay.
to move the shed would also cause you to move the pavers and
Yes,
the
it would,
driveway.
yeah, it would be a hardship.
Right now, you can drive directly from the street,
Right.
straight back to the garage.
No one else has any questions for the applicant? I'd like to, at this point, open the meeting to the public. Anyone wishing to speak on this application, please come forward, speak into the microphone, give us your name and address, and you can ask this applicant any question that he's already testified to. Seeing no one willing to speak, I move the public portion be closed. All in favor, say aye. Aye, public portion is closed. Mr. Solicitor?
Mr. Chairman, there is case law where it covers these situations, where a member of the public relies on a representation of a zoning official or building construction official in a town that gives them authority or apparent authority to construct something. If the board believes that this man was told that it was okay to build by a former zoning officer, you should consider that if he relied on that representation in good faith.
I know at one time, on the books, there was the construction code said that as long as you didn't build an accessory building higher than the height of your home, it was acceptable.
Yeah, so I don't know what representation the
I don't know how far it goes back.
construction guy made to him, but apparently this gentleman was under the impression that he was permitted to do it, and in fact did it. And if you believe that he relied on that representation, then it wouldn't be, I don't think it would be error to give the gentleman what he's requesting.
Mr. Tuto, was there a construction code permit issued at the time you did the job? There was no,
Nothing at all, no.
then what, would we be remiss in saying that this is approval of a non-conforming use?
Well, he built it in the wrong spot, but if you're convinced that a township official told him that he could do that, and he relied on that, then that's created a hardship for him. That's a hardship also. So the board has to be satisfied that we're taking his testimony that this is what happened. This gentleman, I didn't know that this prior, construction official, so I don't know if he did it before, or if this is something that was a problem with this particular person, but if he did tell a member of the public that you can do this, it's permitted, you don't need a permit, and you rely on that in good faith, yeah, then it's a hardship, then that person has a hardship then.
Mm-hmm.
Now, if it was different where I go into a township official or the construction official and say, listen, can I do this? And I already know that I can, and the town official, that person is the construction official is in error, and I know he is, then I'm not protected. Okay, but if this man relied on that, his hardship came from what he was told by somebody that apparently had the authority to, give him permission.
Mr. Knight, Is there any, does the construction code department have any issues with the application?
No, this was a result of a complaint that I went out there for regarding the alleged running of the business in there. And subsequent to my investigation and interview with the property owner, it was revealed that there was no approval for it. But there was no issues that I found out there.
Thank you, Mr. Knight.
Thank you.
Well, hearing no objection and no one from the public, I would, I think a motion is in order. Motion in order to permit the bulk variances for both sides.
There would be 3 bulk variances, Mr. Chairman. There would be one where a 16 by 24 square foot building is, that's the maximum, that this one is 20 by 20. So that's one variance we would be giving. The other one would be where there's 5 yard set, a 5 foot side yard and 5 foot rear. He's requesting 4.21 foot side yard bulk variance and a 3-inch bulk variance from the required 5 feet for the rear yard.
Does that help? Is that what point two? What equates to?
They said 3, so I don't know.
2.9.
3 inches.
That's a quarter of a foot, so.
3 inches.
Everyone has heard our solicitor's recommendation, and is there any more discussion required? Then I would move for approval of the bulk variances as depicted in our solicitor's statement. And
I make a motion. I'll second.
got a motion by Mr. Hopperly, seconded by Scott Pachowski. All those in favor signify by, roll call vote, please. Sorry.
Cameron, absent. Valdez,
Yes.
Dickinson,
Yes?
Walperly,
Yes.
Bushian,
Yes.
Kachowski,
Yes.
Fullerton is absent, Dunn is absent, Kapadas is absent. Obert
Yes.
and Beatrice is absent.
Thank you very much, and have a good holiday.
You too, Michael. You and the family.
Yep.
Take care.
There being no other business to come before the board, I would move that this meeting now be open to the public. What do we have to do? Oh, okay.
Dave, you want to?
Yes, we had, Mr. Chairman, we had to memorialize a resolution on an application that was approved at our last meeting, preliminary and final amended site plan approval for the purpose of expanding the parking area at the premises located at 160 9th Avenue, Block 135, Lot 43.08. As the board might recall, we heard testimony and the board approved that the applicant could expand the parking by, I think, constructing an additional 76 parking spaces at the site. This board did make the approval condition upon that the applicant has to construct and install sidewalks along the entire front of the existing building. As you recall, some of this parking area just ended up into a landscaped area. And it was recommended, and the applicant agreed that they would run parking all up and down the front area of the new parking. And also that the resolution includes the applicant cited that he would revise his plan according to John's review letter dated November 15th, 2013. And he requested, which is going to show that the proposed new parking is going to be phased in over certain phases. I believe he said 3 phases, 3 or 4 phases. And so we also put that in the resolution. And the approval is also conditioned upon his obtaining any other local, state, or county approvals that might be required.
Motion's in order. Motion by Deputy Grishan, seconded by Scott Fachowski. All those in favor? Roll call vote, please.
Members Dixon, Dickinson,
Yes.
Bushian,
Yes.
Chastity,
Yes.
Thornton is absent, Walperly,
Yes.
Gunn is out, Cavadas,
Yes.
Pottas is out, Bobert,
Yes.
and Beatrice is out.
Thank you. Declare the resolution adopted. At this point, I'll open the meeting to the public for public discussion, any matter. You want to speak, please come to the microphone, give us your name and address and the purpose of your visit.
Howard Zanobi, the owner of Environmental Testing Consultants. We just moved into.
We have to speak into the microphone.
We just moved into 413 North Black Horse Pike, used to be for Scenic Realty. And we're trying to get our CO, but apparently we don't fit into any category for the CO because we have what they call radioactive material license. Basically, we have XRF machines that we use for lead inspections. They're handheld machines, but we have to store them somewhere, so we have to store them.
I'm sorry, I can't hear you.
We have to store them in our office
You
space.
can take that out of there and hold it closer to your
Move it up.
voice. Thank you.
Basically, what we're looking for is, we don't fit in any category, even though we're an office. We have handheld, what they call XRF machines, and the XRF machines have a radioactive, what they call sealed source. The sealed source is a radioactive material, it's cobalt-57. We have to store that somewhere for our inspectors. The place we were at before was at One Mill Drive in Cherry Hill. We stored them in our office. There are certain procedures we have to follow. The building we have now has an ideal storage area downstairs. Used to be the police station down there. It's a concrete type vault area. And we would like to store our sources there for our inspectors to use in the field. But right now, we don't have any way that we can
And where
get a
is the
CO.
property?
Pardon me?
Where is the property?
413 North Black Horse Pike,
Old Borough Hall, Dick.
the old borough hall.
What you want to do is operate it like a warehouse?
No, it's, we're strictly consultants. We're environmental consultants. But what we do is we have machines that we use for the state and for Camden County, Gloucester County, when we do lead inspections. The machines have a radioactive source, so we have to store them somewhere. But the DEP requires us to store them in-house. So we have to have an area in the building to store the machines. And what we do is we have a radioactive material license. The radioactive material license is for 48 millicuries of cobalt-57, which is a radioactive source, which is what powers the machines. Because we have to store radioactive material, it really doesn't fit into an office or any category that you have for the zoning. So I was told to come here informally and speak.
I think what this gentleman is doing, since he wouldn't get a CO because his particular use is not an enumerated permitted use in our zoning ordinance. I don't know whether he's seeking an interpretation and where the board would say, well, we feel that would be a permitted use. Now, normally, we would require an application to come in on a use variance. And that's the board can make him do that. I mean, they could, you could make him come in and make an argument to why it should be a permitted use. Essentially, I think what he's saying is he wants you to give an interpretation. In other words, to say, yes, we believe this is a permitted use, so he can get a CO. Now, you say the equipment is radioactive.
We have it here. We brought it to show you exactly what it is. It's a handheld scanner. We use that for lead testing. Basically, we hold it against the wall, we shoot the wall, and it releases a very minor amount of radioactive source because lead, everybody knows that lead is a natural shielding for radioactivity. So it measures the density of the lead, and it comes back and tells us whether the paint is lead or not lead.
So unless the equipment's active, there's nothing to...
Right, it's a sealed source, so there's no leaking, and the only way that radiation can be released is when you actually pull the trigger on the gun itself.
And who regulates this equipment?
We're regulated by DEP, New Jersey DEP, we're licensed through them, yes. And we have our radioactive material license through them also.
You don't sell this stuff there, I mean.
Oh, absolutely not, no.
So this is just an office that you get a call up and we want a testing over at this location, and you just dispatch from that area?
Right, for instance, right now, we're doing a lot of the Hurricane Sandy homes down the shore. Before they can do any demolition, they have to test for lead-based paint and asbestos. So what we do is we get a call, we're giving them 4 or 5 houses. We go down there, we take the equipment down there, we test it, we bring it back, and we store it at our offices. So basically, it's only in use when we're out of the office. It's not anything we do in-house.
How many units are we talking about?
We have a license for 4 units, but we only have 3 active units. Two of them probably down to their second half-life, and one of them is fully sourced.
Are they regularly tested?
We have to do leak tests every 6 months on them. We're required to submit that. We get reviewed every 2 years by the DEP. They come in and do an inspection for us. And then they go through our records, and it's very regulated.
Is the testing that they do similar to what they would use for x-ray machines?
It's similar. X-ray machines basically don't work off a radioactive source, so they give off the same type of radiation, it's gamma radiation, but they don't have like a sealed source in them. X-ray machines are basically a tube, and it works off of a metal plate, the X-rays. But the radiation levels are pretty much similar to that. It would be a little less with the cobalt-57 source than it would be with an actual an X-ray machine, because you're shooting the X-ray machine at you. The cobalt-57, the machines we use, we're just testing substrates on material.
So how often do you have to recharge them or change the...
We change the sources, half-life, the half-life of cobalt-57 is 272 days. So every 272 days, it halves. So in other words, if you have 12 millicuries, then in 272 days, you're going to have 6 millicuries, then another 272, you're going to have 3. So about every 3 years, we have to resource them.
You don't have to retrofit the building with any lead-lined walls or anything?
No, nothing like that. We do leak tests on them. They don't give off any radiation unless they're actually in use.
So is
And then it gives off a minor amount at that
They're
point.
not in use.
Right. All our inspectors wear dosimeter badges when they do the inspections. We've never had any counts at all on the dosimeters or
Is it
any leak
line of
tests.
sight or is it a...
Line of sight, exactly, yes. In other words, you point it, and Troy can come up here and show you he can show you the machine itself.
Well, I don't want to shoot it at me.
We wouldn't do that, but he can shoot it like something like this, and show you exactly what it is.
Do they have to wear protective gear when the equipment is in use?
Now, what Troy has is, this here is a dosimeter badge.
Looks like a red light.
All right, and all he does is that he'll hold it against the source here or the wall, and he pulls the trigger, and what that does, it releases a very minor amount of radiation. Within 30 centimeters of the gun, there's no radiation. So, and that's pretty much all we do. We take that in the field, and that's how we inspect for lead-based paint.
And who controls if you're getting more of a reading than you're supposed to with that device?
This here is a dosimeter badge. What it does is measure any radiation levels. If our inspectors are overexposed,
That's going to let him know that he made a mistake.
yeah, it'll let them know he made a mistake. Yes, absolutely.
Could that mistake be fatal?
No, there's not enough source in these. The source is about the size of a match head. It's very, it's only 12 millimeters in each one of the guns. But it's just, we need to store them somewhere. So.
I think there's nowhere in the borough that, except maybe the special economic district and the industrial park, that could satisfy the need for the storage that you require, et cetera.
We're trying to determine where it fit into as far as...
It's not a specific use under a commercial zoning, but it seems to be a specific use that's mentioned in our special economic development zone, scientific or research laboratory. I guess it would be similar to a scientific laboratory because they're doing testing. Our general office district permits general office uses for professional and commercial offices. I guess this, obviously, this is a testing, I guess it's...
Yeah, it's just basically for testing for lead-based paint.
Testing, similar to radon test, but except for lead-based.
Right, in other words, for lead-based paint, the only time we're active is when we actually.
But all your activities are conducted off-site, right?
Exactly, yes. There's nothing being done in-house.
Storing stuff there.
But we have to, our inspectors have to pick them up and return them somewhere, so.
Where's the spent fuel?
We take them back, these are Brukers, so we send them back to Bruker and they decommission them, take the sources out, and they do it, they're actually in Washington State. So,
You're right, you do have a problem.
Mr. Chairman, I'm going to advise the board that if the board is having a problem with, giving an informal okay or making the determinations of permitted use, you could file for a use variance, and then you would just have to notify everybody within 200 feet. But it's not a specific permitted use, but it's definitely not a prohibited use in that ordinance.
Because
Of course, the problem is with permitted uses, it's hard to write every one that would be permitted or what you would feel would be permitted, because it could.
I thought the general office code in general meant that you're going to receive a fee for service.
And if that's how you interpret it, yeah, that if you wanted, right now it says retail business activities of a business office. Well, it's not really retail, but it's retail in effect that somebody's coming in and he's selling a service to them, but it's just it's just off-site. It's like if somebody was doing radon testing or termite test, well, that's off-site, and this is just where his office would be.
Most of your clients commercial or residential?
most of our clients are government. In other words, Camden County is a large client, Gloucester County, City of Vineland, City of Bridgeton, New Jersey DCA, most of our government clients.
I mean, before, I think that was Forsini Realty, wasn't it? Yeah, so it was a real estate office. Theirs was a service that they provided. So.
When you were in Cherry Hill, do you have any issues getting your CO there?
No, we were at, if you know where One Cherry Hill is, the large building right at the Cherry Hill Mall. We were right in there, and we had our sources right in there with us.
You had no issues getting?
No issues at all.
That's probably also.
I think if you have to rely on the advice of our solicitor, it's not permitted in the zone, but it's also not prohibited.
So what the board would have to do is make a record or a determination that this particular type of business or activity would be a permitted use under our ordinance, under retail business activities of a business office.
Well, the board doesn't have the purview to change an ordinance.
No, but you can make an interpretation.
Yes.
Grant variance, right?
However, wide that might be.
No, you wouldn't have to grant a variance. You just say now that we feel that this is a permitted use.
So nobody was foreseeing really,
Right. If you wanted to, or if the board could say, well, no, we're not sure, make him come in and do a use variance.
What does Keith think? Do you have any issues on this, Keith?
How widespread is this application that you're intending to use? How many more of these businesses that are there within a 2 or 3 county area?
That have the radioactive material license like we do, or do the same type of work that we do?
Yeah, here you
Okay. Mr. Knight?
There probably, we're only one of probably a handful of businesses in the area that do the actual lead testing. There aren't a lot of us around. Like I said, most of our clients are government. There's not a large call for it unless you're doing work for like HUD or unless you're doing work for government agencies.
Mr. Knight?
Just to give you an idea of how everything came about with this, this was a result as I observed the sign in the front of the facility being changed without a permit, and after consultation with Mr. Zanabi, I believe it was you purchased the building from a relative, and he from the state, and was unaware that a certificate of occupancy or permits were required. There was the concern about the material being stored in there. My inspection of the facility after he applied for it, revealed the building is basically an office building with a minimal amount of storage for these devices.
Have you ever known these devices to leak?
We've been using these devices for 15 years, and we have never had a leak, never registered a pub 0.0, so we have never had a problem with them at all.
So worst case scenario, if there was a malfunction with the equipment?
We're required to notify DEP immediately. We have to contain any type of leak, and we have to ship them back automatically to the manufacturer at that point. But DEP would automatically come out and contain everything and seal them up and take them. So we'd have to let them know immediately. And we would know that from the dosimeter badges or the leak test.
So this is nothing like Atomic Energy Commission?
Now, even though New Jersey is a agreement state, and the licensing is actually through the NRC, Nuclear Regulatory Commission, but all radioactive material licenses through that, but it's not nuclear, any type of nuclear radiation or anything like that.
Office buildings are a specific permitted use, as well as retail business activities of a business office. So it seems that business offices are permitted use. So your determination would be is this a business office? Is what's he doing? Is this a business?
How many people are on staff?
We have 8 people on staff. We have 5 full-time inspectors that use these machines. We don't always use them every day. Not all the inspectors would use them every day, because we also, with lead inspections, there's also wipe testing and, risk assessments that we do that don't require the machines.
So at any given time, most of the day, the office is not occupied because of the people, I guess they're on the site.
Most of the inspectors in the field, it's occupied by usually about 3 or 4 people a day, during the day. Yeah. Inspectors come back from the field.
I also discussed this issue with the fire inspector. Under the Uniform Fire Code, there is what they call Type 4 permit that is required for this, and subject to his inspection, could be issued for this type of facility for approval of the storage.
How closely regulated is the industry? Okay.
That I'm not familiar with, Mr. Chairman, on that. As far as the fire inspection, it would be an annual inspection by the local fire marshal on an annual basis to make sure the compliance is met with, if the permit is issued, in compliance with the storage regulation of the material.
Is there special storage involved from the fire department's point of view?
Again, just my initial, and again, I don't do the fire inspection, but familiar with it. It would appear what he has there, utilizing it, maybe the old vault area should be, again, just going through it, adequate for the type of storage. But again, I haven't had the material safety data sheets or anything, regarding the products being stored. Just do a walkthrough inspection, just get an idea of what was inside the building.
And your employees don't require any kind of special training to operate the equipment?
They do. They're all licensed to operate the equipment.
What do they have to?
They all have to have XRF licensing. They all have to have state licensing to operate it. Yes.
And who regulates the school? Then in New Jersey or federal?
New Jersey DEP regulates. There's actually 3 agencies that regulate our business, particularly for the lead inspections. One is New Jersey Department of Health and Senior Services. The second is New Jersey Department of Community Affairs. And the third one is New Jersey Department of Environmental Protection. And all 3 of them license us, and all 3 of them inspect us.
Well, again, I defer to the solicitor for his advice to you.
Mr. Chairman, once again, the board has to make a determination of whether you would require a use variance, or if the board is in agreement that it would be a permitted use. He's explained the nature of the business.
What do you think?
Well,
Either that, or you could make a formal application. That's up to you. If you feel that it does, the nature of his business, that he's ready to explain to you, fits into one of the categories. Once again, I won't read them all, but A says retail business activities of a business office store, and then it goes into display, bakeries, and it also says office buildings is a permitted use. So I guess that would mean, and
Does it fit that criteria? Retail businesses, goods for service or fee for service?
well, yeah, that's what you have to make a determination, if it's goods for service or it's services for a fee. So you had a realtor that was there. Now, the realtor sells houses and is a fee for services. And I guess an attorney could be there at that office. But they're asking you to make a determination. If you can't, then you would say, well, we would prefer you to come in on a use variance.
Well, I can't make that determination. I don't know how the rest of the board feels.
You've got to, you, as a board, you can make an interpretation of your ordinance. It doesn't have to be based on, an
Do
application.
you want an application, or do you want to approve it just the way it is?
No, we
That's what
need,
he's asking. What's the
We can
board's
interpret
opinion?
it so that,
Right, why don't we
our
call the board, as you can see, what our opinion on
no, I'd like to see an application.
Seth,
He wants an application.
what's your
I
opinion?
don't think we need an application.
You want an application, then?
my opinion is if he meets all the permits, I don't see an issue with it.
Debbie?
I feel the same way. Keith, is the CO hinging on what the fire department says? In other words, would they have to approve this in order for him to get the certificate of occupancy?
No, they would be subject to their own regulations once they got the certificate of occupancy. The certificate of occupancy is being held pending now, based upon your decision.
Use variance or use of the, whatever, our existing.
Exactly.
So he doesn't have to go through any inspection prior to getting the CO, as far as the fire department.
No, whenever it is, if and when it is approved, then the certificate, it's actually a certificate of continued occupancy inspection will be performed. Any violations found will have to be abated. Once that is done and it's issued, then the building will be subject to the fire department's annual inspection and permits for storage.
I really think that it would fit into the category we have now. The only thing I'm not entirely comfortable with, I don't know that much about this equipment, and, that's it. So, are you familiar with any of this?
I think he needs to make an application.
Yes.
No, it's all new to us, and,
Mr. Roper, how do you feel you?
No, I think he needs an application myself. I don't see a problem with it.
This is a lot to chew on in that 15 minutes presentation.
I mean, the fire inspector's going to inspect him every year once he gets in. His machines get checked. Says he hasn't had any leaks. I'm going to certify myself because I'm a contractor. We do swab. They can check your RP. Yeah, I mean,
and I'm guessing they're not as accurate, correct? Is that?
it's pretty much the same thing.
It's kind of the same thing. The only difference is it doesn't quantify the swab.
Okay,
See, any house prior to 1976 usually has lead.
right.
Like if I go in to replace windows in a house that was built in 72, I gotta check those windows and make sure there's no lead. If there is, I gotta quarantine it off and properly remove it.
How long have you been using this type of equipment?
We've been using this for over 15 years now.
Oh, okay. It looks like we're half, right?
That looks like you're at a tie here.
Yeah.
What I do is make an application. Keith, is there any way that a temporary CO could be a 30-day? Are you guys ready to open up for business, or?
Well, he's really in there.
You're
In other words, yeah, that was the issue. He was operating without a certificate. And again, he was just not aware of the requirements. And he's certainly, I can tell you, been complying since,
Okay.
once he's aware
Why don't you
of
make
it.
your application for a use variance?
I feel that don't feel well informed enough to make a decision, no you do or yes you don't.
The question is this allowed in that area, right?
Right, what he's asking is for an interpretation.
Right, it's not the type of business, the fact he has radioactivity, it's.
No, that's not, yeah,
That's
it's-
not an issue.
yeah. I mean, that's,
This type of business allowed.
right,
The
right,
fact that it's office space.
yeah, right.
No.
Well, it is a service, it is a service.
Yeah, it is a service. But it seems, but we have 3 board members that aren't so sure, 3 that are, so then the best thing would be to, do a use variance. I mean, he's operating now, I mean, hopefully, and we have a busy agenda in January. Come in and get the application.
Advertising, and
You know,
then
the,
call me when you're ready to be filling anything in after.
It probably won't be January though, because we've got that big one coming back in. Right, it would probably be February.
Probably get in, probably hear that first.
First,
All right, as long as you don't think, yeah, it shouldn't be, it shouldn't
as
be
long as
long.
I have everything the 10 days prior that I need, okay? They take all the money and we're paid for it.
Now, who actually owns this business? You do, a sole proprietor, or
It's a LLC,
how many members of LLC?
just 2 of us.
You're gonna have to come in with counsel.
Okay, that's
All right,
fine.
yeah, it's required by statute. We don't make that up, it's a statute.
No, that's fine.
Tells
I'll
us.
come in with counsel.
Yeah, okay. So put your application in, you'll get your, notice of people within 200 feet, and get that in.
It's in the plan.
Okay, and we'll get you in on January. Well, since he is trying to comply, I'm gonna close the main down the business down. I don't know if Keith can give it temporary, or I guess he.
Well, what I can do is just, what we call hold the violation in a pending,
Yeah, hold the
Until-
file, yeah, yeah,
until such time that, he's,
right, because the main came in.
He's working on it, yes.
Yeah, it came in good faith, so.
that way there will be no disruption of his business until
Right.
such time.
Moving on.
Yes.
Okay, we'll see you in January.
Yeah, the next thing is the fees.
The bids we took, I have copies made for the board members to review so that in January we can award that.
Have they come in?
I do have extras up here, Scott.
You got that?
I've read it,
Just read it all?
yes.
We only had 2 respondents, is that what we have had so far?
Right.
And one of them is in the room right at the present time, and the other is representatives in the room.
We're not doing that yet.
Do we do the appointments of reorganization, or do we do them now?
You know, you have to do a reorganization,
That's
Dick,
not
yeah.
for
Okay.
them to review.
Okay, I know, I came over here June the 6th, and we opened up the request for proposals from the planning board solicitor, which is Mr. Rowan, and the engineer solicitor, engineer for the planning zoning board, and his representatives here is Mr. Brian Hall. We only had 2 applications, so it looks like everything is going to be status quo, and those appointments will be made during the January reorganization meeting. Now, is there anyone from the public that would like to?
One thing I'd like to ask is, should we recommend to mayor and council that we should have a traffic study done over the last, the big application? I mean, this is the biggest application.
I was informed by the chair, by Candy, that she did call, she called for another one, and
She asked them to do a second traffic study, which was done November 14th.
Oh.
Should we have our own traffic study done? Mayor and council would have to approve us.
yes, we can make a recommendation that we have our own done, but mayor and council would have to
They had to approve it, right?
approve it and pay for it.
Right.
And
I mean,
they,
what do you guys think? I mean, this application,
I agree, that traffic study was done like on a Tuesday afternoon, 3 o'clock, when school was in session.
and my problem with their traffic study, Dick, is there's 59 townhomes approved off Davis Road that are not considered in their traffic study. So, I mean, I don't think their traffic study is reality, so I think we need, I don't know, I mean, if you have the mayor and council.
There was one other caveat that I'll mention at the meeting, and I'd like to mention it now, because we're talking about the application and they're not in the room.
But I mean, I just like us to request council to do that. I mean, can we do
Yes.
that?
I can send a letter.
Would you please?
Does the board want me to send a letter to mayor and
Is it
council?
unanimous?
Okay.
Yes, Joe, yes, Mayor?
What, I wasn't in the room, I,
Yes,
nobody
sir.
did.
She wasn't, yeah.
You're not allowed to be.
Yeah,
You have
right.
absolution.
Yeah.
I would recommend it.
I'll get a letter out in, this week and,
The cost is sounding redundant. Does anyone from the public have anything they'd like to discuss with the board? Would you please come forward and give us your name and address, please, and the nature of your business?
Linda Hurd, 213 Oak Avenue. I applaud you for the decision to apply for an expert for the traffic study. But in regards to that, I also feel that it would be beneficial to have someone come in and do a planning study for how many children that are expected to be brought in by this development. The young lady who testified here a couple weeks ago said it was going to be 0.42, which seems a little bit ridiculous. And this is going to have, I think, a very big impact on our school system. I know, having taught for almost 40 years, what it's like to be at capacity with children. It affects the whole educational process. So along with the traffic study, I'm hoping that you would approve an expert to come in to see what this is going to do to our residential value and how many children are expected to really be in. I mean, people can play with numbers, and that's what I feel like has been done here, to be slain.
Thank you for your kind words.
Discuss this application now, it's not the time for it,
When is the time?
at the public hearing.
But won't it be too late then?
In January,
Wouldn't it behoove us to have the study done prior to?
you're not supposed to discuss the application without them being here. That's what we're saying. That public hearing is held for that purpose.
So in other words, I have to bring this up again next month.
Right.
And will we then have time to do this?
Yeah.
we have,
You
I
heard, we
tell you,
had
the
how many
town, the
residents
borough
walked
or the
last
township
time.
though can't hire appraisers to see if there's going to be a diminution in value. The people that would live adjacent to those properties or the proposed construction would have to do that.
But couldn't we hire somebody to make a projection as to how many children are expected?
They already made that projection.
Who did that?
They did that.
Those people, they did, but I'm saying to have someone
The citizens
independent.
and the people that would be against it, or if somebody had an objection against it, would be their duty to do that.
So you're saying private citizens would and not the township?
Yeah.
Or with this argument, I think the school board would have to do that.
The school board?
Yeah, the school board would have to do that. And they could come in and say, well, no, we don't believe their figures, these are our figures, the school board would have to.
So it would be their responsibility, financial obligation to do the hiring?
Yeah.
Okay. All right, thank you.
Or anyone else from the public wishing to speak? Motion is in order. Move the public portion of the meeting be closed. All in favor? Aye. Now, what we have any more resolutions to go through, Mr.
No, that was, we just had that one, Mr. Chairman.
Any old business? Communications? Good welfare. Anyone from the board? Motion to close good welfare is done. A motion in order now to adjourn. We'll adjourn now until January 8th at reorganization. Thank you very much.